I was saving this for a future podcast episode, but I can't hold it for that long because who knows when I'm going to get my act together to get that back up. But before I go on my soapbox, I want to let you know that there will be very to little apologia. You're hereby warned. I said what I said. If you're new to me, I'm Melissa Danielle, a creative badass living in Hawaii by way of Brooklyn. I create space for turned on women to become the wildest and juiciest versions of themselves. We live in a world right now where everybody wants change, but they don't want to change themselves. They want everybody else to do and be better, but they're not looking in the mirror and starting there. You got folks out here telling women that masculine men pay bills and are proud to do so. Meanwhile, ain't none of them, the women especially, in relationships that model the behavior they espouse. In fact, they ain't even in a romantic relationship to begin with. Why are y'all listening to them? Y'all listening to folks tell you that money or tell you what money is or does, and they ain't got none. Why y'all listening to folks who ain't never had a healthy relationship tell you what one's supposed to look like? Why y'all listening to folks tell you that you're going to spoil a baby by holding them when nobody ever held them that way? Why y'all letting people who ain't got no ambition or dreams squash yours? And why are we out here assuming that lower income people don't deserve access to the full circle of care and resources that are available to everybody else? Why do we not demand that women's labor be valued for the extreme everything that it is? It is women's work in any capacity is all encompassing. It requires all of us it requires us to show up as our whole selves in order to do this work. And when it comes to birth work, that's everything. And we have so many women who are coming from a place of lack, supporting women giving birth coming from a place of lack. This is insanity. Why is this acceptable to us? Why are women in 2019, after all these think pieces about women's labor and how much women give of themselves at the sacrifice to their own health and well-being, how women are underpaid and their work undervalued, that this most important work, we are still saying that it's okay for doulas to be underpaid or to work for free? Why? Why are we doing that? So this rant is brought to you by an Instagram dialogue that came about after a doula association posted that doulas are business owners. Told me I was being dismissive and disingenuous to suggest that low-income folks needed financial literacy education and fertility awareness, as that wouldn't be helpful with them being poor and pregnant. She was upset that doulas in her area didn't want to work with Medicaid because the payout was too low. All of her frustration seemed to be directed at the doulas, but not at the system that wasn't willing to pay doulas a living wage. And this is what I take issue with. It should not be on a doula who is already under earning to pick up the slack. We're asking doulas, and doulas of color especially, to take time away from their families and their lives to support women when they can barely support themselves. And no one is willing to be honest about how problematic this all is. If a doula wants to work for low cost or free, that's her choice. But to be mad at doulas as a whole for not being more accessible, whatever that means, for having a boundary around who they're going to serve, we all got to do better. We got to do better. Because guess what? No matter how well we explain what a doula does and what the scope of their role is, there's always going to be a situation in which the doula finds themselves unable to hold space for whatever is going on in that expectant's life. It doesn't matter what income level you come in at. Nobody knows what a doula is. unless you're in these circles. And so, because you don't know what one is, because you don't know what the value is, because you haven't had that culture of care for women, of women honoring and serving women, nobody knows how much it's worth or what it should be valued at. So it's up to the individual doula to decide for herself how much she's going to charge and command that. And when we're being honest, all of these doulas out here want to save low income women, but they are ill equipped to deal with the complex socioeconomic challenges lower income women face. So stop asking doulas to work for less than a living wage, and stop asking Black women to work for free. Because when we make statements such as every woman deserves a doula regardless of her ability to pay, are we implying here? Who is supposed to pick up the slack? Because to say that and then add that you're not asking doulas to work for free or discount their services when we don't have systems in place to compensate doulas on a sustainable level, that is dishonest. Because I can't go to my landlord and be like, well, so look, so see what happened was this month I had like these 4 births, right? And none of them could afford my rate that would allow me to pay your rent in full. So I'm gonna have to give you a discount. Or you're gonna have to give me a discount on the rent this month because I was out doing good in the world. Like, where that gonna work? Who gonna, like, seriously? Like, where that gonna fly? Like, how far you think you gonna get with that? Why is that acceptable? But money sure know how to get folks in their feelings. We live in a world that runs on money. We need to be honest about that. We live in a world that runs on money. A lot of people get away with not having none and they live in real great lives, but the rest of us, we need money. You don't need money to be happy. You don't need a lot of money even, but money gives you options. And when you ain't got no money, you ain't got options. And we do a disservice to low income people when we decide, because that's what everybody's been doing. We've been defining their situations for them. We've been putting a value on their worth. We've decided that they're lazy. This whole work harder, do good in school, it's all fucking bullshit because that's not how the world fucking works. And so we do a disservice to low income people when we decide that certain kinds of information would be irrelevant to them. How would we know if we could elevate their status if nobody took the time to talk to them about money in a way that would make sense for their current situation? Right? So I didn't ask her what she thought I meant by financial literacy, but I didn't have to, considering that most people do not receive financial education of any kind or have a basic understanding of money and how to make money work for them. It's easier to assume that I'm being elitist and tone deaf. Because most people make money bigger than it has to be. So when I said financial literacy, she probably thought I was talking about investments or things along that line because that's what most people think. It's the reason why people don't have financial planners. They think that they have to have a lot of money to be able to work with one. But plenty of well-paid folks don't have financial planners. Plenty of well-paid folks are just a paycheck away from being set out, just like middle income and low income folks. Lots of people aren't responsible with their money, but we don't hear about it from well-paid folks because they can maintain a shiny exterior. And since she didn't ask me what I meant by financial literacy, she missed an opportunity for more insight and possibility to address the issues she's dealing with in her community. I've had a relationship with a financial planner for over a year, and I only recently was able to actually invest in a product that will offer me financial security down the line. And you know what she asked me to do the first time we met during my financial health history? Get clear on how much student loan debt I had. Find out what the interest rates are on those student loans and have a money conversation with my partner. That's it. That's all we had to do, or all I had to do. She didn't try to sell me on some like stocks or mutual funds or any of that other stuff that she knew I wouldn't be able to invest in. because that would be a waste of time, hers and mine. And then, to even start at that level, knowing that I'm not there is a was a way for her to lose me as a potential customer. So it would be in her best interest to start with me at a level that I could meet and manage. So she met me where I was at. All she asked me to do was know my numbers and begin taking responsibility for my current situation. That's financial literacy. That's how you start. Because literacy just means knowledge, competence, um, skills. So whatever you put in front of that, you're becoming literate. You're becoming literate about the thing that you put in front of that word of literacy. So your financial health conversation is not going to look like mine. It's not going to look like, your friends. It's not going to look like the person who make more money than you. It's not going to look like the person who makes less money than you. And that's fine. A good financial planner will meet you where you are. No matter where your financial situation is, knowing where you are with your money and having the information and resources to not fall deeper into debt or other financial constraints can make all the difference, even if you're not able to do anything about it at that moment. So I acknowledge, while I do come from privilege and am known to have it show itself from time to time, I'm actually a whole systems, meet people where they are person. I learned early on when I first started health coaching that the first thing is never the thing. People come to you and they want to lose weight because they think it will make their lives better. And maybe they're right. But when you peel back the layers, you'll discover that they hate their jobs or they're in a bad relationship and they turn to food for comfort. And so we're in this culture that is just like, oh, you just need to eat less and exercise more. But you could do that and you could still not lose weight. You could do that and lose weight and your life still be shit. And so that's not helping anybody, And so then what? Or you got people, they work 60 hours or more a week. They're barely managing their personal lives. So of course, they're going to choose foods that are fast, cheap, and easy. And no amount of green smoothies or detox programs or cleanses or whatever you want to call it are going to resolve the weight issues, are going to resolve how they're showing up for themselves until they get to the core of why they're making those choices in the first place. And after all that self-awareness, once you get to that self-awareness, then you can get to responsibilities and taking responsibility for yourself. Then you can actually start to make different choices. You can see what you see what your limit of perception is, what your lack mindset or your scarcity fear, all that stuff, and then you can choose to make a different choice. I'm the first one to tell you that taking care of yourself should be priority number one when life feels like shit, especially when it feels like shit. Like that's when you gotta ramp up everything. You gotta make sure that you stay drinking your water and getting your physical activity in and getting good night's rest and tuning out all the noise. But I also know that no amount of green juice is going to save a person from a bad marriage or a hostile work environment. All that shit is just going to be a Band-Aid. And so is the doula. So is the doula who thinks they're going to save low-income women from having negative childbirth outcomes if they're not willing or able to address what got them to this place or this point in the first place. Because guess what? All women across socioeconomic backgrounds are experiencing negative birth outcomes. So the very first thing is to acknowledge that if you are financially unstable, the last thing you should be doing is getting pregnant. But okay, you're pregnant now, so the point is moot, right? Well, how many women do you know have children 9 to 12 months apart from the oldest one? This is because they think if they're not getting a period or if they're breastfeeding, Or like, if you're having sex within like a 3-month window after giving birth, that you're not going to get pregnant. So why would fertility awareness be disingenuous? Why wouldn't the thing to say be like, okay, this is your money situation right now. We don't want you to dig yourself into a hole deeper than the one you're in right now. So what do you do when you want to get out of the hole that you're in? You stop digging. And so what do we need to look at right now in terms of your financial situation? What do you feel would make the most sense for you? What would feel really good right now? Right? That's that money piece. And then you ask, all right, so you had this baby. And you know what people ain't prepared to deal with is that you might encounter a situation, and it doesn't matter how much what their economic background is or their class level education, whatever. Chances are you're going in your line of doula work, you're going to come across a client that did not want to be pregnant, that does not want this pregnancy, that does not want this baby, and whatever the reason is, they sticking it out, they having this baby. But that shit affects the pregnancy. It affects the outcome. And so if you find yourself in a situation where you have this lower income person that doesn't want this baby, didn't really want to be pregnant, what's the next question you should ask them? The next question you should ask them is, what do we got to do to make sure that you don't find yourself in this situation again a year from now? What do you think we need to do? And so the first thing you could do is teach them some body literacy. And just so you know, plenty of well-educated and well-paid women are walking around here not knowing how their bodies work. We don't know that our menstrual cycle has phases, that a normal cycle actually isn't 28 days. It doesn't have to be 28 days. It could be a range of 28 to 33 days. Sometimes, for whatever reason, you might have 42 days, 45, 60, whatever. Like you skip that you can bleed and not ovulate, which is not a full cycle. So this means that we can all benefit from fertility awareness, regardless of your economic level. That's the best thing that you could do for somebody, is empower them to know their own body. Because when you know your shit, when you know your own body and you know your money situation, what can other people do to you? Knowing your body, knowing how your body works, allows you to say no. It allows you to ask qualifying questions to the person that's saying you need to do this, that, and the third. And so if somebody coming to you and saying, I'm going to give you this birth control, and you say, no, that's okay, I'm using a fertility awareness method, and they go, that's how people get pregnant, then you could be like, oh, so you tell me, so you know what I'm doing? So tell me what I'm doing. And then after you correct them, because everybody think they know what fertility awareness means until you have to correct them. And then you correct them and they sitting over there looking stupid. Then you can say, thank you. I'm going to be right over here continuing with what I'm doing. I don't need that birth control because I got my body that I can listen to. I know my body. I'm checking my fertility signs every day. So I know when it's okay for me to have unprotected sex if that's what I want to do. I'm good. If you have a basic understanding about money and finances, then you know that you could go out there and make a decision about money and not be bamboozled. Can't nobody mess with your money if you know your money. But if you're sitting up in here being ignorant about your body and about money, two very important things that determine that contribute to our level of happiness and well-being and whatever our definition of personal success is. Why are we not talking about this stuff? Why are we choosing to be willfully ignorant about this stuff that is important? This stuff that make or break us in relationships, in our jobs, in our lives. So, if you're interested in improving the outcomes of a disadvantaged, oppressed, and under-resourced demographic, then you have to ask those folks what they think they need to improve their situation. Not just for that moment, but for their whole lives. I'm pretty sure most folks in desperate situations don't get asked any of that. We just out here treating a gaping wound and we working to keep it from opening back up. And that's fine. That's necessary. But don't act like you doing something. And it doesn't matter if they're not able or ready to do anything with the information when you offer it to them. You put a bug in their ear. You show them what was possible for their lives. Best believe that little bug is scratching around and finding a home. When I worked as a community food advocate, one of my biggest frustrations that led to me burning out and leaving the work was poverty pimps and this feeling that no one actually is interested in solving food access problems. I worked in that space from 2005 to 2015, and I watched people cycle in and out of the space. No one looking like they read any case studies, papers, articles, or even talked to the people in the communities that they were serving. Nothing. I can't tell you how many people I met coming into the same position, lasting only about 2 years or so, wanting to reinvent the wheel. All bright eyed and bushy tail, starting from scratch instead of building off of what already came before them. That shit was so exhausting. So exhausting. We got emergency food orgs that have been around for almost 40 years. Yeah, because I think like the first one came about in the 80s, in like 1980. So it's like 40 years. And they still here. They still here. We doing something wrong, folks. We doing something wrong. All of these so-called nonprofits coming into the community, surveying a small demographic, and then labeling the entire community as underserved and desperate so they can get hundreds of thousands of dollars in grant money that they funnel back into their organization. Organizations that has no representation of the people they claim to serve in the leadership roles, on their boards. Those are poverty pimps, fam. Because at the end of the day, whatever is trickling down is not elevating anybody out of their situation. It's not helping them get to the next level. They're not thriving. They got to keep coming back for the service. So if you got to keep coming back for the service, how is it helping you? I'm not saying that it's not keeping people on a level, because you got to float, right? For sure, yo. You got like you out here on subsistence mode, on survival mode. You definitely got to get to a level where you feel like you can breathe. But for how long? How long? I'm done with these poverty pimps. I don't want to be a poverty pimp. So I'm seeing all of this. Meanwhile, grassroots organizations, community-based organizations, they in the trenches every day. They live next door to the people that they serve. They out here begging for scraps, getting peanuts. While these bigger, larger, whiter, shinier organizations getting all the money. And there ain't no fucking improvement. 10 years. It's this shit, like, it's been more now, right? And shit still look the same. And it looked the same everywhere. And so this is what I'm starting to see now as I'm looking through these doula groups. I'm out in the community with my doulas. We all trying to be saviors. There are doulas and doula organizations that are out there doing it, improving outcomes in maternal and infant health. but they're unable to provide the birth workers with a living wage. It doesn't, like, no matter what kind of birth that client has, if they going home to a situation where they're not going to thrive, what was it all for? Birthing persons deserve access to a continuity of maternity care, and birth workers deserve a living wage. They go together. Women are having babies, being supported by women leaving their babies, and both are just surviving when they should all be thriving. Some of this we need to take responsibility for on a personal and community level, and the rest we need to be holding folks we vote into office accountable to. So I'm not going to stop talking about financial literacy and fertility awareness as relevant topics for everyone. I'm here for full spectrum reproductive wellness. And if folks think that it's not supposed to include information on how to help somebody be a mother who thrives instead of survives beyond comfort measures and saying no to an intervention, then they're complicit in a system intent on keeping a certain demographic down. And that's not me. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.